Welcome back, everyone, and welcome to What is God Part 3. We're still in the pre-religious phase. I just want to be clear. I'm still trying to have this conversation pre-religion. I know I've been drawing some things in from different religions, so that's just to try to sketch out what these ideas are. I'm still trying to have this conversation pre-religion. What would people before any religion think God is? What is God? What does that word mean? What do those three letters together mean? It doesn't have to be God. It can be God in a different language. Just what does that concept, what does that idea mean? Pre-religion. In future parts, we're going to start drawing in more from Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism. We'll draw from the Quran. We'll draw from every religious source, and we'll start to pick definitions from those sources of what God is, and we'll see if they match to this pre-religious almost idea that I have. So in the first part, I established that I think God is the infinity of all infinities. God is, if you kept zooming out, God is the complete everything. And there's nothing, there's the opposite of that, which is the absence of God, true everything, which I don't know if there is an absence of God. I think nothing and everything kind of exist together. But again, it gets foggy. I don't exactly understand how to think about that yet. And I identified the self, the one. So there's 1, 0, and infinity. And the one is you. It's you for you, but it's me for me. Right now, it's the pin at the back of my head. It's the pin of consciousness pushing the words out of my mouth, making this video. And then I'm going to go edit it. And I'm going to put it online. And then it'll be you, the person who's watching it. You are the one who is absorbing it right now through that pin of consciousness. It's decoding things. Right? It's that pin. You can feel it. It's like right at the center. It's that thing that's controlling. It's the one that listens to the voices in your head, right? The consciousness, whether it's the good voice or the bad voice, the devil or the angel on your shoulder. Those voices, they're you, but they're not you. You're the one that's listening to them. That's the pin of consciousness. So just to recap on some of the definitions that we went through in part 1, it's going to get weird because I plan to do many, many parts of this over many, many years, and I might start to forget what I did in previous parts, so I apologize if I ever repeat myself, but today we are focusing on the image of God. Today we are just focusing on what does God look like. That's it. That's the only thing I want to talk about today, and again, we are not bringing in any religious references at all. I'm gonna try my best not to. So I'm not going to be talking about God the Father or any Christian idea of God or any Islamic or Jewish idea of what God might be. I'm not going to bring in any Buddhist ideas. I'm not going to bring any Hindu ideas, although their ideas of what God is, I think, will build off of what I'm going to present today, which is my idea of what God might look like. So I need to make myself absolutely clear. I'm not talking about what God feels like. I'm not talking about what God sounds like. I'm not talking about any voices in your head, any feelings in your heart. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking purely optics, purely what you see. How do you see God? How do you see whatever that word means, G-O-D? How do you see that, and what does that look like? So for me, it's a couple things. For me, ultimately, to go back to the theory that I put out in the first video, that God is the infinity of all infinities. He's the true everything, capital E everything. What does that look like? Well, I think it can look like two things. It could either look like white, just white light, pure white light, because that would be kind of the opposite of nothing, right? Nothing I envision as just pure blackness, but then it wouldn't be blackness because it would be the absence of blackness. But in my mind, I can only imagine blackness. What it would really look like, true nothing, is what looks like from behind your head. Imagine what's behind your head right now. You can't see it, and it's not black, right? It's just not there. It's just not existent, right? Like imagine, what is behind your head right now? Like for me, it's this black curtain, but I'm not thinking about the black curtain. I'm thinking if my peripherals went all the way around, what is behind me? I can't see it. It's just not there. There's just my hand. I can't see my hand right now. It's not there. If it comes here, now it's in my peripheral. Now I can see my hand. So there's also an interesting relationship to that, that nothing is behind you and everything is in front of you. But I'll talk about that more in a future video. That's a strange concept. But nothing would be black to me. Everything would be white. So it's the opposite of black. So that's very black and white. Okay, God is white, Satan and hell is black. But like I said in my first video, I think Satan and hell is just the underworld of the everything. I think it's still a part of God. I think Satan is still a part of God. Evil is still a part of God. I think that's somewhat what is meant. And I just said I wasn't going to do this, but I think that's somewhat what is meant in the Christian idea of, God creating both good and evil. I think both of it is a part of him. He just is the summit, and the summit at the top is the good. And then it kind of devolves down, and the bad is at the bottom. The evil is at the bottom. I hope that makes sense for everybody. Like, evil's at the bottom, good is at the top. And we'll talk about the relationship between that in a later video, but we're still trying to define just the everything. What does God look like? What does that white look like? What does heaven look like? Because that's also part of God, right? Like, how can you distinguish God from heaven? Because in the Eastern religions, they think you become one with the everything at the end, right? You either reincarnate or you become one with the everything. So becoming one with God and going to heaven are kind of the same ideas. So we can almost think of God and heaven as being almost the same thing in a way. In a way, there is a distinction, obviously, but what does it look like? So I just said maybe white, but there's something else. To me, the other thing would be this is going to be hard to describe. I'll put some images on screen to help you guys visualize all this stuff, but I think God might look like a Mandelbulb. Now, what is a Mandelbulb? Well, there are these things called Mandelbrot sequences, which are basically mathematical code ran through, I don't even know exactly how they're made, but it's basically mathematical algorithms that are colored, and they create these very complex patterns. And you can go online right now and just search up Mandelbrot sequence and just watch a video, and the first thing you'll say is like, oh, this is trippy. It's like trippy psychedelic visuals. It's like, it's not exactly what it is. That's what I thought it was at first too, but it's math. It's like purely mathematical. And when you take these Mandelbrot sequences and you play them out and you colorize them, they look very trippy. And then when you make that 3D, they become Mandelbulbs, which is this like dimensional version. You can go search up Mandelbulb videos after this. They're very, very trippy. But as you pass through that thing, it looks very, very similar to what people describe when they die. They pass through some sort of tunnel that looks like this to a white light. So maybe the white light is the unification of the Mandelbulb. Again, this is getting really, really weird to talk about, but that Mandelbulb, I've seen it before in my own life. When I've enhanced my visuals in my head before. I've seen that. I've seen that many times. Many, many people have seen those trippy visuals before, and I think those are real. I think that's really what reality looks like, is those Mandelbulbs. I think what you're seeing now is just a simplified version of reality. Now, Hoffman's went into this in great detail. This is kind of what his work is about, is you don't actually see reality as it is. You see reality as it's best adapted to you for survival, not for objective reality. So when you look around, you see what you need to see to survive. If you saw every single wavelength of light, you wouldn't be able to navigate the world. You'd be blinded. There'd be too much to see. If you looked up to the clouds and saw everything that was up there, all the colors and all of the shapes that are actually in reality, it would be too much. You'd just be staring at the sky the whole time, and a predator would come and eat you. So you actually evolved to not see the complete reality of the world. Again, I believe his name's Donald Hoffman. He had an interview with Lex Friedman where he went much deeper into this idea than I can go, because I'm not a scientist and I'm not Donald Hoffman. I'm not doing his work, but his work goes into this, how you don't actually adapt to see reality as it actually is. And I think we all kind of know that. We all know that, like, it's the whole idea of the Matrix, right? Like, you don't really see the world as it actually is. But I'm saying, like, scientifically, like, you biologically did not evolve to see all of the light patterns, all of the full spectrum of light coming at you. You've only evolved to see what you need to see. So I think that's what the world actually looks like. I think God looks like that. I think it's this kind of trippy Mandelbulb sequence. And that's the patterns of life. That's everything. I think everything's encompassed in that. I think love and emotion and all the things that we can't see, I think you can see them. If you had the vision of God, if you had the eye of God, you could see how all the patterns looked. It would look like a beautiful explosion of patterns and colors. I think that's what it would probably look like. So that's how I would view God, but I want to get a little bit more based to reality for a second, because that was very out there and I talked about that in a very abstract way, so I'm sure I lost a lot of people, but let's try to ground this a little bit more in reality and talk about some things that people actually know about. Let's not talk about like psychedelic visuals right now. Nebulas. When I look at nebulas, I see God. When I look at galaxies, I see God. When I look at just photos from Hubble, and I look at all of these beautiful, magnificent images of all these colors and patterns and explosions, and I think of how infinite all of them are, I think that each one of those galaxies is as complicated as ours. And I don't even know how complicated our galaxy is, because I barely understand our solar system and how complicated that is. And let alone that, I barely understand how complicated Earth is. So the levels of complexity just keep going out and out and out. And when I see, these Hubble images that just blow me away every time I look at them, absolutely shocked. When I look at these images, I see God. Like, that's what I see. I see infinite complexity and beauty. That's how I would define God. That's how I kind of defined him in the first video, as the all good, beautiful, because beauty's almost the capstone on all of goodness. The beautiful, all good, everything. Infinite complexity, endless patterns, ever receding horizon. So when I look at the universe, that's what I see. I see God. I also see this when I look at biology. When I look at Ernst Haeckel, who is, I hope I'm saying that right, but I'm probably butchering names. Wouldn't it be a deep thought video if I didn't butcher a name? Ernst Haeckel is a famous German biologist and zoologist who I actually got into from reading Nietzsche. He's actually an inspiration to Nietzsche. And when I look at his work, which I'll obviously show you guys right now on screen, when I look at his work and the way that he was able to draw the beauty of all of the complex patterns that exist in our world, in biology and creatures and plant life and absolutely everything that's on Earth. When I look at all of that, when I examine it all, I see God. Like, I see God in that. That's what I would define God as, is this unending complexity and these beautiful patterns. Like, the mathematical precision of biology, to me, is a direct pointer to God. This is a reason why I think so many biologists are theists or convert to a religion eventually, because there's no other way to explain it all than some sort of intelligent design. And we're getting there with Darwin now too, with thinkers like Stephen Meyer who have explained that, there's a lot of evidence for microevolution, but macroevolution, on the other hand, we can't exactly explain. We can't explain how one species becomes another species. We can't explain that. So the best explanation that we have right now is intelligent design. And I'm not here to flesh out all those ideas. You can read Stephen Meyer's books, or you can watch his debates. I would highly recommend looking into his work, because it's very, very important, especially today, especially in reversing this idea of evolution explaining everything, which a lot of atheists and a lot of scientists have fell for, unfortunately. But I think intelligent design is there. I see it in everything that I observe. When I look at physics, when I look at astronomy, like I said, when I look at these Hubble images, when I look at biology, when I look at what's here on Earth, even when I listen to music, I might be the only, no, I'm definitely not the only one that feels this way. Definitely not. I don't know why I would even say that, but when I listen to Bach, I know other people feel this way too. I feel God when I listen to Bach. I feel like this endless complexity in his music. And I know that that's just a human being, but I truly think God spoke through Bach in his music. And there's other pieces of art that I think are like that too, that I read it and I go, this feels divinely inspired. Like, there's no other way to put it. Like, I feel like this person was connected to God and they let God speak through them. It's the only way that I can possibly explain the depth of their work. Like when I read the Brothers Karamazov, I can't compare it to anything else. I read the Brothers Karamazov and I read Pride and Prejudice, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm not here to shit on Jane Austen and say that her work isn't divinely inspired, but I feel something so much more profound in the Brothers Karamazov, where I'm like, okay, this is connected to something. This is connected to something that's way beyond my comprehension, and probably beyond the comprehension of the writer, which Dostoevsky is one of the greatest geniuses of all time. And again, I don't want to put down Jane Austen because I love her works, but I should have used somebody like Stephen King as an example. That would have been a better example. But when I look for God in the world, that's where I see it. I see it primarily in art, and when I research sciences to the deepest level, when I research physics to the deepest level, or biology, I start to see these irreducibly complex patterns that I can't explain other than intelligent design, and I'm seeing God in the world. So for me, that's how I see God. In future videos, I'll probably go through the feeling of God, because I've had moments in my life where I can feel the presence of God, or there's like a synchronicity moment, right? Like Carl Jung talks about, like there's a moment of synchronicity where it feels God-like. There's like a divine feeling. But I'm not talking about that today. I want to save that for another video. Today is just the optics of it. So I want to ask you guys as well, because these videos are supposed to be collaborative. I want you guys to chime in, because I don't know what I'm talking about. I hope that that's clear. I have no idea where I'm going with these videos. I don't know if by the end of this series I'm going to end up not believing in God, or like it can go anywhere. These videos are completely open. I just get on here and I start talking. I kind of give you guys my newest ideas on what I think God is. And again, I want to be clear that I'm staying on that particular path. I want to not explain, because I don't think you can, but I want to go down the path of understanding what God is. I'm not asking who God is, because that's more of a personal question. That gets more into the differences between religions. I'm going to do that in a different series of videos, where I'm going to compare religions, and I'm going to try to understand the personality of God better, because obviously there's contradicting ideas. Otherwise, we would have all come together and been like, yeah, you know what, Hinduism and Buddhism and Christianity, let's just put it all into one book. It all fits. It obviously doesn't fit. I mean, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I would argue it does fit. We just haven't looked hard enough, or haven't put in the effort to making it fit. But I'm not here to say like we should be putting all the religious texts into one book. ChatGPT might do that for us. But what I want to do is compare the ideas of God and like more personal aspects in a Who is God video. But what is God is purely focused on kind of bridging the gap between the theists and the atheists. The people who don't believe in any God, who think that God is non-existent. I want to not convince them that God's real. That's never my goal. I never want to convince anybody of my point of view, because I don't even know what my point of view is. What I want to do is try to bridge that gap, because I see God in the world. I do have a belief in God, but that took me a long time to get there. I used to be a staunch atheist. I used to think like I can disprove God. I have all the evidence against him. I used to be able to quote Christopher Hitchens off the top of my head, and I was obsessed. I was obsessed with atheism, but I've come to a point where I can see God in the world. I can observe him, and I want to have that conversation today with you guys. So definitely let me know down below, how do you guys see God in the world? Again, I really want to be distinct. Like, please try to stick to those boundaries if you can. You can comment whatever you want. Obviously, it's a free platform. But if you can, try to explicitly explain how you see God, rather than how you might feel him or understand him or think about him, just specifically the optics of it, because that's what I want to learn in today's video. I want to learn from you guys, because I have some very, very smart viewers who have thought about this maybe deeper than I have, probably deeper than I have. But yeah, every single time I come back to this series, I'll just add another layer to the cake, and then hopefully one day this will be a valuable resource for somebody to understand God from a perspective that's currently uneducated. I mean, I've read a decent amount of philosophy and theology, but I don't have a degree in anything, and I would not consider myself an expert in any of those fields. So I'm just somebody who's trying to learn, and hopefully 10, 20, 30 years down the line, I learn more, I get more information, and I can flesh this out in a better way. But I want to do it bad at first. That's why I'm doing this kind of pre-religious talk about what God is, because I want to do it badly to show, just to give an example to everybody else, that you can have these conversations badly, You're going to have them badly. Like, even if you're having them good, they're going to be bad. I've said it in the first video. This is an impossible task. I am not going to answer the question of what is God. I don't care if I put out 100 parts in this series or 1,000 parts in this series. If I do it till I'm 90, I'm not going to answer this question. I would like to. That's the goal. That's the goal, even though it's an unachievable goal. But I know for a fact that I'm not going to be able to answer it, because there's been hundreds and thousands of brilliant thinkers, far more intelligent than me, that have spent their lives trying to answer this question before I have. So I hope to just stand on the shoulders of those giants and to, with you guys, make some progress along these lines in answering the question of what exactly is God. Because everybody's having this conversation in the wrong way. They're asking, does God exist? Well, you can't have that conversation if you guys don't agree on what God is in the first place. So all of these atheists and theists who are butting heads, one side trying to convince the other side, and they're both standing on their grounds trying to pull the other person to their side of the ship, it's never going to work. What you need to do is stand right in the middle, and like I said in the first part of the series, have a Socratic mindset of, I don't know anything. I cannot prove anything. I don't know anything for certain. Like, I don't. Like, I like to think that I know God is real more than I know that the sky is blue and the grass is green. But I honestly don't know either of those things for certain. I don't. We can agree that the grass is green and the sky is blue for the sake of living together, but I don't know anything for certain. I truly take that Socratic perspective when I'm having these conversations, because I think it's the only right way to do it. I don't know anything for certain. I'm trying to learn. I'm trying my best, and I'm giving you guys what I think is true, what feels right, and what feels true to me. But I need your guys' help, because one mind alone is never going to answer this question. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments. I always appreciate you guys watching these videos. They're complicated, abstract, out there. This is now part 3, so you got to watch the first 2 parts before you even get to this video. So I know that this is going to be kind of a smaller fraction of my audience, but the people who have commented on part 1 and part 2, you guys have been amazing. You guys have really blown me away, and you guys have helped me a lot. So keep commenting, keep watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share with your friends. It helps boost this channel and the algorithm. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, it means the world to me. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.